Let me open our code where we'll convert the code into modules today. We have written this code, right? Let me open. So this is the code we have written. Now let's convert this into modules. So modules are nothing but directories, right? We'll divide this into subdirectories and we'll work on this. So let's proceed connecting them. Give me a second. Okay. So first let us create a folder here, which are nothing but the modules, and naming this as a web server module. Let's create a folder, be it I have problem with the keyboard, modules, and within this there will be sub modules called subnet module. First I'll create a separate module for subnet. So within the subnet module I should be having again main.tf, all the files. It was not created in the right path. 1 second. Modules in this subnet module. Maybe I want one more folder, web server module. Later on I'll do this. So yeah, now in this main.tf, also variables.tf. You will have everything here. This is called child module or the sub module, and this is called this main.tf would be called as parent module or parent reference outputs.tf, right? So here all the code relevant to this, let's say all the code relevant to web server, sorry, subnet. From the subnet part, I'm removing from here and add it in the subnet module. Right, good. But the thing here is we are not creating VPC in the same module. VPC is being created from the parent module, right? So we can pass that as an input from the parent module. So whichever you want to pass as an input, write them as a variable definitions, like define those variables here. Variable VPC ID. So now I can go here and instead of calling that directly, var.vpc ID, right? And also we need to assign a value. We'll assign this later. So main.tf has got this var.vpc. And cider block, I just want to parameterize everything. Whatever you want to parameterize, just add those definitions here. Subnet cider block. env I'm just defining so that we can just prefix it with a variable name, right? So these are the four variables. Let me refer them. Wherever I have VPC, I would like to refer this or pass this variable instead of calling it from the resource, because this resource is no more created in the same module. It's coming from the parent module. And also for the subnet. Var.subnet side of block. Here also var.az, parameterizing everything. Here also the environment instead of own, I would like to have this prefixed. Wherever we have subnet, we just replace them as such, and we are referring to the subnet which is created here in this line. So this should be fine. Similarly, variables are also outputs. If you want this module to return something, you could add the output values as well. I just want this to return output. It should return the entire subnet. Right? Subnet is an object. It would have so many attributes. Later on, we could grab whatever value you want. I just want this to return the entire subnet. So subnet. That's all. So we have segregated this and the module is ready. But how do you refer this from here? I just want to call the module from here. So how do you call the module? Modules can be called with a module and some name. Let me add it. Module. Some module name. This is user defined. You can put any name here. My module name and the source. Source is modules. The path. Source is nothing but the path. It is in the current directory. So modules and the path. And then the VPC ID we need to pass because we are using it as var. But now here it's been created in the same module. So I can say from the resource grep it and assign it. Similarly, subnet CIDR block. We need to pass this value, var.subnet CIDR block. We need to define them. We didn't define, that's why it was showing as such. We'll define them. var.az and environment var.env. Right, these variables should be defined in the variables file here. So let me add those definitions. Variable subnet CIDR block. AZ. And what are all the variables we have defined? We should define here as well. env. Instance type, subnet CIDR block, AZ. Yeah. And we can define one more thing here. For VPC also, we have hard-coded this part. Right? We can also use a variable for it. Let me define the variable first. We are parameterizing the whole thing. VPC Cider block. Outputs main.tf and the variables. So it's looking good. So this module is ready. We are referring the module and passing the variables. To check its validity, whenever you are creating a new module, you should do Terraform init so that the module can be initialized. Whenever you create a new module, you should do it. Now I'll just do Terraform plan to see if it is all in place. It's asking, yeah, see, we have created the values, but we did not pass those values, right? See, that's why. So AZ, let's say AP South 1B, that's availability zone. And ENV is, let's say, test environment. And what else we have? What are all the variables you have defined? You have to pass the values for all of them. So VPC, cider blocks, subnet cider blocks. And yeah, this should be fine. Let me check now. Terraform plan, Terraform init, Terraform plan. Variables.tf line number 12. Is not set. Env is set. Variable env. Main.tf whenever you are calling this. Var.env. Has no default value. Use var file argument to provide the value. No value required. Env test. Actually, let's put and close them in the double quotes. Let me check now. Still subnet ID AWS instance example own subnet has not been declared. Okay. Own VPC subnet cider block. If you go here, subnet own subnet. AWS subnet own subnet ID. A managed resource AWS underscore subnet has not been declared in the root module. It is declared here itself. So when it is declared in the same, you don't need to call or refer from the parent. It should be fine. AWS subnet.id. I don't think module is initialized. Just a second. Where did I create this? Modules subnet. Module is not installed actually. Modules subnet. Terraform init. See, module is not initialized. execution begins from this main.tf where you have the provider block defined. This is where your execution begins. So here, as and when the execution begins, we are calling this module. Is this file saved? Let me open the bash shell. Terraform in it. Main.tf. Current directory, modules, and the subnet. Let me check the directory structure once. Terraform. So inside the Terraform, oh, they all are correct only. This is the modules, subnet, all the main.tf outputs variables, output script, state files. It was looking good, main.tf. Let me try now. Terraform init. Modules are not whoever change a set or change modules or for Terraform, return this to reinitialize your working. If you forgot, other commands will remind you to do so. Log file, main.tf file, and all other files. Main.tf. Let me do one thing. Let me create one more module for web server also, and we'll see. Actually, it should be initialized, but for some reasons it's not. Let me create one more web server module. And here also we'll have all the files, all the Terraform config files like main.tf. Variables.tf. Outputs.tf. Right, so all the web server related code. Let me add it here, including the data source for the AMI. Let me remove from this. Add it in the main.tf. Just come back. I don't want. This is not needed. So the resource security group and also the resource. Let's place this here. Here also we are not going to have VPC. So first let me define the same variables we may need here. Not all of them, but few. Subnet side of block we don't want, but AZ environment we need. And also we need instance type. So variable instance type. So now let's use them here. Wherever I have VPC, here, var dot VPC ID. Instance type is fine. This is also fine. This is being passed again from the parent module. We are not getting from the this module. This is reference from another child module. Actually, it's not coming from parent also, right? Subnet is being created in this. So how do you refer another a resource which is being created in another child module? So here we may refer it with the module name, module dot my subnet, name of it dot subnet dot id. So that's how you refer something created in other child modules. So everything else should be fine. If you want, you can define it as environment or workspace, anything should be fine. Outputs, it can return again an EC2 IP kind of. Let me add the output. So it should return the, sorry, here actually it would return the entire object, the entire EC2. From there we'll grep it. So if you go to this particular module outputs, it should be returning the entire web server. From there we can grep it. Okay, and then the variables defined, it is fine, main.tf. Let's save this. And now we need to call this module, right? Like we called the subnet module, let's call this as well. Somehow they are not being initializing. Whenever we do Terraform in it, it should. So own VPC ID, module, web server, subnet ID being passed. By the way, the name is my subnet. All these variables should be defined, VPC, subnet. Modules, web server. Let me try in it. Okay. It's showing some error. Let me check on the problems. Required AZ not specified. Okay. Here AZ is mentioned, but here, yeah, we are not passing AZ. That's the problem. AZ equal to var dot AZ. And subnet ID is not expected here. my server instance is defined. Is defined. Subnet should be defined here. Variable subnet ID, which we are using or which we are passing from here. An attribute name subnet is not expected here. Subnet ID, it should be defined in here as well. Let me add it properly. Module.mySubnet dot right. Just rewriting it worked. Now let me try in it. Somehow the modules are not getting installed. Let me launch it once again. Open this folder. Let me launch it from the terminal. How something wrong? Actually, when we say this, these modules should be initialized and installed. Just let me recheck this. Provider, resource, cider block, we have parameterizers, but that's okay. Everything was saved as well. Let me do one thing. It should start as a new one. I just removed everything from there. Modules were ready. They should be installed and the Terraform code should be in place. Init is not working anyway. I'm just doing plan. When I'm doing plan, because module is not installed, it's throwing error. Again, subnet ID missing from the subnet ID. Because module is not installed, this is throwing error. Even from the CLI, I went here, Terraform minute. Something weird. Modules. So the path. Okay, let it be. This is how we divide the modules. The advantage is your code is clean, right? Your code is looking clean and better organized. You could rerun or reuse. You may call this module from other Terraform files, right? From other projects as well. So it makes the code reusable, clean, and better to manage. So this would do the same. Again, it would install, I mean, it would create an EC2 instance with all the custom configurations. Let's do one thing. I'll keep this open in this window and we'll show you creating modules from the available ones on the registry as well. And then we'll come back and see for it. So this is how we create our own module. What if you want to use some modules from the registry? Like yesterday I have shown you, right? There were so many modules available like VPC module, EKS module and so on. Here we shall create EKS cluster using this EKS and VPC available modules. These are available. So let us use this and create a EKS cluster. See here, this is the VPC. Like we need a VPC which is compatible with EKS. EKS cluster would need a VPC which would create subnets across the availability zone. Every region will have certain availability zone, and every availability zone will have some public subnets as well as the private subnets. So private subnets are used to load the or used to launch the workloads like worker nodes, and public ones for the load balancers. So here they have hard coded, right? So private subnets and public subnets, if they have 3 availability zones, there'll be total 6 subnets created, one public and one private in every availability zone. Right, that's how they configured the module. Enable NAT, single NAT gateway, and so on. So Terraform module. So let's use these modules, existing modules. Let's see, creating it from existing modules. We'll come back and check on this. For some reasons, it's not launching the modules or initializing. Let me open a new window. Let's create a folder. Right, so let's create the module here. Let's use the existing modules. Here I'm going to create a file. I would like to name it as vpc.tf, where I'll create a VPC which is compatible for our EKS cluster. So I would refer the module which is available. I can call the module. How do you call the module? Again, the provider block configurations block would be different. Sorry, would be same. And then call the module. How do you call the module? Simply module, some name. This is our own name, and the source and the version of the module and the path and the variables, whatever you want to pass. Right here, I want to use some availability zones. This is copied or reference from here. Terraform always you can refer from here. This is where I'm writing the code, the same thing. But instead of hard coding private subnets and all, we are going to use the code. I'm going to parameterize them and use data sources to fetch the availability zones. So if you see here, these are the parameters declared, data sources, because rather than hard coding the availability zones, every region will have certain availability zones. We could refer them, refer those usage. That's what I'm doing. And right, see here data sources which will fetch the AZs. And for private and public subnets, we are using parameters. Enable the NAT gateway. NAT gateway is used to drive the traffic to the private subnets. So single NAT is enough, enabling it, enabling the host names. And certain tags so that our cluster can identify these are the tags it would use. And this is the cluster name. You should put the cluster name whichever you want to use so that a cluster can identify which VPC, which subnets it has to use. Some tags, these are some tags. For some reason, it was showing as such Terraform provider and then the module Terraform block, provider block, data source, and the module. Let me just check on initializing this. It's saying problem, no variable. Oh, okay. So we need to declare those variables as well. Define the variables, whatever we have used. It's saying VPC CIDR block. VPC CIDR block is defined. VPC CIDR block is being defined, and we also need to pass the values for them. Let me create another file here. We defined it in the same place. So let me create a variable file, terraform.tf first, and assign the values. You may use some URLs where you can generate these IDs. And now it should be good. It's defined. Now Terraform init. It should install the module. Installing provider plugin. Yeah, do you see here? Module is installed actually. My app VPC is the module name. This is how it should initialize it. But in the previous folder, this is not happening. We'll check back. So this should create a VPC which can be used by the EKS cluster. Any questions on this part from anyone? So it has initialized successfully, and I could say I'll not create it because it's a paid one creating EKS. I'll just do plan. It should create VPC components. See, 20 VPC components will be ready with this. So once this is ready, we can also set our code for EKS. I'm just naming it as EKS.tf. So here I would be calling EKS module. We may just go here for EKS. This is what I would be referencing. Module, some name, and the source version, cluster name, cluster version, like Kubernetes API version, and any add-ons. Or else, you know, right, managed node groups. Node groups will be there in EKS. This is how you can create any number of managed node groups. So the same thing I'm going to use here. Let's go to the code. Right, module EKS, calling the module. See, earlier source is in my local directory, right? But now source is from AWS and the module name and the VPC name which we created some time back. And the managed node group. Managed node group is dev. Minimum is 1, maximum is 3, desired is 2. You remember, right? Managed node groups in EKS cluster where you set certain limits. So this is a new module. So whenever you have a module, do Terraform init. It should initialize the new module. See, it was initializing if you see. AWS EKS. And once the module is ready, we could do plan and apply so that the cluster will be created. Somehow for the other one, it's not initializing it. I'll check back on that. And now if you do plan, it should see all the components. 50 components will be created, which includes EKS cluster, VPC, the subnets, private subnets, public subnets, and so on. Right? This is how you can use already existing modules. Instead of you creating them from scratch, you can just call them like we were calling. We are also calling it, if you notice. Yeah. See, the same way we are also calling, but these are within our folders which we created. Somehow here, when I say initialize, module is not being initializing. It should initialize. Any questions? Meanwhile, I'll check on this. This is how EKS can be created with Terraform code. And this is how we'll create our own modules. I'm checking back on this. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, any confusions, you can ask me. Subnet ID we are passing here. Subnet ID is module my subnet.
Preeti, that modules we call from the AWS side. So is it recommended in the production, or we have to create our own modules and call them?
We will create our own modules in the enterprise level, but if you want to add on top of the existing modules also, we can do. But generally what we'll do is if we are using any modules from the registry, instead of downloading directly or calling them directly from it, you could download the module into your repos and call it like this. Like download the entire repo and call it from here.
Okay.
For security reasons, most of the times we would rely on our own modules. But you could refer the original ones. Subnet module. I'm just checking on every file. Cider block, availability zone, resource, tag name, availability, route table, route. Data source. Here it should be, we are passing it. Where dot subnet ID. We are just passing it as a variable that should be defined in here. It's defined. So and then let's go to the main.df. VPC resources there where we are passing the VPC. Initializing modules. It says initializing module. Let me try. Subnet ID. Subnet ID is being called as such. We are passing this. It's been passed through the module. So outputs line number 2 value instance example. Okay, so here we should refer to the output. Here output name is this one. First, let me check this much. We'll add output later. Next one, value instance EC2 public IP. Again, outputs file. Instance.web server. A managed resource has not been declared. Web server. It is example, right? So it should be example. Now, now it is saying 7 resources would be created out of all, right? Understood? So if you do plan, same EC2 instance will be created. Now let me add the output. Here I have added. Here also from the parent. See, you should be, your output would be printed from here. So output, some name, let's say IP. And then this is coming from the child module. Like it's calling, it's actually returning from the child module. So module dot my server instance. No, the module name I have used is my server. Let me check the module name once. Oh, my server instance only, correct. So my server instance dot EC2. This is the output from the module dot public IP. Okay, and now Terraform plan. it should create a resource. I'm creating it, will destroy it. So this is how you can create your own modules. This is one method of creating a module, and the other one is from the registry. So whatever it is, we have got the code now. The next part would be integrating this in the CI/CD and create the infrastructure through the pipeline wherever you need some deploy server or test server. That is the part pending. See, output also printed. It might have created the resources. Let's check back. This is the one. Right, within our own VPC test subnet here, variable is not resolved properly. We may correct it. But yeah, this is test subnet and so on. Any questions? This is the advanced concept in Terraform. You need to do thorough practice to go through and implement it. You can use the code available on the address book repo. Initially, you can use the same code and try out, and later on you could start writing it. Line by line, you don't need to write it. Always Terraform, Kubernetes, we refer from the documentation for the syntax. So, any queries? And whenever you are working with it, make sure to destroy your infra so that it could tear down all the components it has created rather than you going and manually destroying it.
Preeti, do we have any restrictions to use Terraform on AWS?
Restrictions meaning?
Like last time, maybe 2, 3 months back, there is a actually Terraform, something is going on with AWS. There's a resources and limits on production or something.
Where it happened?
I'm not sure actually, but we are using this cloud formation templates actually.
Mhm.
And we are planning to move this one, but it's very complicated to use actually, Terraform.
There are no restrictions as such.
Okay, okay.
We use Terraform a lot. This has been used in multiple projects, multiple companies where I worked. From the past 3 companies, we are using Terraform. I don't see any limitations. Maybe if you could point a particular scenario, maybe I could be more helpful. All right, then let me know. All right, good day. Thank you all. See you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.